I'm Chris Porter. I'm did run a company called Medical Genesis, and really what it was an incubator for really starting medical device companies. And I'm going to talk from the standpoint of I've had a lot of experience in the startup world and really talk from that perspective. And the other thing is that I changed the title of the talk to Fundable. And what's Fundable now, I mean, these are things that happened in the past and basically the things that were required to take you forward to get a company started and funded. But I think the same things still apply. So I had a bio on here and I'll just shoot through it. But she already did it. So anyway, medical product characteristics, I mean, first they're highly regulated, FDA, and you have to do certain things. In general, the products are high value and high margin, so they cost a lot of money, and generally the manufacturing costs are pretty low compared to the sales price. There are different types, drugs. I don't know what happened here. Biologics, which I won't talk about. Diagnostics, which are very similar to devices, which I am going to talk about. The other thing that's really important in medical devices and medical in general are third-party payers. So it's no longer, the doc really doesn't make the decision in terms of what gets paid for. And medical IT has a different model, and so I'm not going to be talking about medical IT. There's a lot of similarities in the things that you have to do to get medical IT done, but I'm going to be talking about devices. So starting an enterprise, and what I thought it'd be a good thing is to use an example, a system that we put together about 10 to 12 years ago. And it was a catheter system to treat brain and breast cancer with radiation. And the company basically put two products on the market. It was sold to Cytec in 2005, and now is part of Hologics. And so really what the product was is that if you have a brain tumor, they go in and resect the tumor, but there's a margin left behind because you just can't keep going. And so what they need to do is do something with the margin. So what they do a lot still, and in the old days they were doing, is using external beam radiation. So what you want to do is to irradiate the area, but the problem with radiation is it has to pass through healthy brain, so you have to come in through different places or you fry the brain. And then also you're not quite sure where the target is, so you're coming in and basically treating a much larger area than you actually have to treat to get the cancerous margin. So a neuro guy came to me and basically said, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. And his idea was basically after you resect the tumor, put a balloon in there and fill it up with radioactive fluid. And so what would happen is that the radiation, which was a relatively low-level gamma radiation, would surround the thing, do the margin, and so that was the idea. And it's actually a pretty straightforward, simple idea, and it was a very simple product. Is that what we did is we put a balloon on a catheter and put it to an injection port. Putting the balloon on a catheter is not a big deal. And you could buy the injection ports and basically go out and get a radioactive fluid that already existed that was being used for thyroid, and fill up the balloon. And what would happen is after the surgery, you'd put in the balloon, fill it up, leave it in for 7 days. After 7 days, you take it out, and the patient was done. And it gets rid of all this fractional radiation, and fractional radiation is extremely expensive. It's about $3,000 a treatment, so you get multiple treatments. This system was selling, totally for about $10,000, so you were decreasing the cost. And here was the actual product here. It was a bottle that was shipped from the people that made the radioactive fluid and a catheter. And we ran clinical studies. Now, a big part of what we did is we never were going to make the claim that we were going to treat cancer better than other people treated cancer. All we did is we came in and said, we're going to deliver radiation to tumors as well as other people deliver radiation from fractional radiation. So all we really had to do is prove that we could deliver radiation. We never made the claim that we were going to do a better job in treating cancer. And the reason we did that was you didn't want to go and run a big study showing, you know, different survival rates. And so we got it through on a 510K, amazingly. And those people are done, but basically all we had to do is show safety, that we could put this in 36 patients. And what we did is showed, in fact, that we were getting a dramatic improvement in survival over people that weren't getting the balloon. The advantages was it was less expansional and fractional radiation. It didn't need specialized equipment. You could do it in any hospital who, you know, you didn't need expensive fractional radiation equipment. Fast treatment times, it was easier on the patients, less healthy tissue damage. I turned it off. Arguably more effective treatment and can be adapted to other cancers. Well, like all things, this thing came in, we got it in, started doing it, and it wasn't growing as fast as we thought. And then other people saw what we were doing and came in and said, well, there's a better way of doing it, and you should do it for something else. And we did it for breast cancer. And so it was a very similar product where you had a catheter on you had a balloon on a catheter, and instead of using a radioactive fluid, what we did is we put a seed on a wire and then moved it back forth in the balloon and does it. And this is, if you go in and you look at mammocyte on the thing, it's being, basically it's one of the treatments that are done after mastectomies. And it's a very large product right now. So now I just did that to illustrate that when I'm doing it, I'm going to use it as an example. So really, what's the genesis of a medical product company or a medical device company? At first, you know, hopefully there's a compelling unmet need. And in this case, the need is that the way they were doing fractional radiation, or the radiation after these cancer therapies, was archaic and it was expensive. So we had the need there. And then, so out of that came an idea, and the idea is, as well, if you put balloons in and treat it from within rather than from without, you're going to do a lot better job for a lot of different reasons. So we took that idea and we basically went out and talked to docs and people like that in terms of, you know, is this feasible? How big's the market? Are you going to do it? You know, do you buy off on the idea? And once we've got the feasibility, we said, okay, well, we need some money, which we got. And what we're going to do is we're going to work the process, put the business plan together and so on. And I'll go through that thing, but sort of concept. And then what you do is you go to proof of concept, which is the point in time where you go out and raise real money. And I'm going to talk about this in a lot more detail later. After you do that, you raise money, you do development and clinical trials to get the product. Hopefully you get FDA approval. Once you get approval, you raise money for commercialization. You get to sales and profitability, and then you have an exit strategy where most people are coming in from an investment standpoint, aren't interested in building companies from the standpoint of participating in the company. They want an exit event. So how you exit when you have investors is you either go public, which has not really been available in the last 10 years really for medical device companies, or sale, which is much more common, of the company to another company who wants the product. And that's what happened to Proxima. It got sale to Cytec, which then ultimately got bought by Hologics. Okay? So just to review, the fundable stages of a medical company is you have the initial concept, fundable idea. Once you have a fundable idea, you raise some money. You go through proof of concept, raise some more money. You do the final development and get the regulatory approval, raise some more money, commercialization, and then you get your liquidity event. And there are two really big stages. This is the early stage and planning of the company, which really sets it up as what it's going to be, what the product's going to be, and so on. And then there's the later stage, which is execution. And I'm going to talk a lot about the early planning stage, because that's really where the main creating the company and creating the value comes. Now I've got the eye chart from hell here, but this is really an important flow sheet, and this is available to people who want it. We can hand it out later on, or I'll send it to Liz if she wants to do it. But really what you're trying to do in a medical device company is you're trying to do 6 things to first create a company that's going to be successful, and secondly, create a company that investors are likely to invest in because they want the company to be successful. So what are the 6 things that you're really looking at? And those are in the yellow boxes. So the first thing is that you want to demonstrate technical feasibility. In other words, does it work? You know, you're coming in with an idea. Our idea was that you were going to deliver radiation from within. Well, that was actually pretty easy to demonstrate that it was going to work, because you can do that using computer models and that sort of thing. So you basically fill something up with a radioactive isotope, you know exactly what it's going to take a look at. So that was pretty simple. And so what you do is to demonstrate technical feasibility, and you build a prototype, or you build something to demonstrate it would work, and then you run a proof of concept experiment, which I call a chicken experiment. And the reason it's a chicken experiment, it's a fast and dirty experiment, and that came from really the aerospace industry, where people were building jet engines and they wanted to know what would happen with a bird strike. And so what the GE and Pratt Whitney were doing is they're doing all these computer simulations. Well, the Brits were taking chickens and putting them in an air cannon and firing them into an engine at 500 miles an hour. And they quickly could find out what would happen to a bird strike. And they thawed the chicken before they fired it. And it was a dead chicken, so. So anyway, so really it's basically to show that it's work with a fast and dirty experiment. The next thing that you want to do is develop external credibility. People like their own ideas, but you've got to go out and get other people to do it. And there are 2 things why this is important. One is that you want to go out and talk to people and customers and that sort of thing, because a lot of time you're off target with your idea. And for instance, when we went out with Proxima, we went out and talked to people, and they said, well, what are you going to do when you put this balloon in here and you have the ejection port, and what about the radiation in the tube? Isn't that going to cause a problem? And the answer was yeah. So we fixed the thing by putting in some valves and so on. So actually what they're doing is they're giving you feedback on your idea so it can be better, and then ultimately you're looking at their response to the thing. You know, do they really like this thing? And if they do, yes. And if they don't, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it, or you should be doing something different. The next one is technical experts. In other words, you know, to validate your idea, and the people with business experience, you know, is this something that's likely to go forward and be commercialized? The third thing, from an investor standpoint, because this is all venture investing, is you've got to show it's a good business for investment. So and that's different a lot of times than is it a good business, because a lot of ideas are good businesses, but they're not good investments. So and really the thing that distinguishes things from a good business from a good investment is you've got to have a market size that's big enough, and then you have to have an exit, because venture investors, again, as I said, are interested in getting their money back, not building corporations. Where, for instance, if you went in and did this and we're working with a strategic or a company from the beginning, they are interested in it from a product line extension or something like that, but it's not necessarily a company. So that I can talk about that. Other one really important is outline the regulatory, clinical, and reimbursement strategy. The regulatory, in terms of product development, is probably the most expensive part. I mean, most people think, you know, you put the product forward in the development of it, it's not, because what you do is you have to go out and prove to the FDA, run clinical trials, and do all that sort of thing. And so what your regulatory strategy is really important. And our strategy was we were not going to go out and prove to people that we did a better job in curing cancer. Our strategy was we were going to go out and show that we could deliver radiation, and we would rely on people later on to show whether it was a better procedure or not. And the reason that is because that way we could get it through with a 510K rather than a PMA, which basically cuts about 1.5 to 2 years off your approval process, and you know, probably $5 to $6 million. So this is really important. And then the second one, which is getting even more important now, is are people going to pay for it? And a lot of people believe that if you get it approved, it's going to get paid for. That's not true. There are different processes. So we were lucky again on this thing because there was a thing called brachytherapy when we put this product on the market, and brachytherapy was being reimbursed, and this is where you put a little radioactive seeds in areas, and so it was being reimbursed at a high rate. So in our case, on the Proxima case, the regulatory approval was straightforward, and the reimbursement strategy was we'll just use existing codes. The next one is intellectual property is not an issue. You can't get investment unless you've got you can protect your idea. And so what you need to do is you need to obtain a patent on the device or the product, and then you have to know that you can practice without violating other people's patents. So you've got both. I mean, it's relatively straightforward to get a patent. It's really not that hard to get a patent, but a lot of times what people do is to get a patent, they make it so narrow that you can drive a truck around it. And so what you need is a broad patent that broadly protects not only your device, but hopefully the concept, and then also make sure that you're not violating other people's when you practice that. And then obviously if you're working in a university environment, you better have licenses to your technology. And then the last one, but not least, and probably the most, is you have investable management. Because people bet who's running the company a lot more than they bet the idea. And most ideas start at something and you end up pivoting. And again, as I said, our idea was originally do brain cancer, and we thought really to begin with breast cancer would be a tough one to get people to buy into because it's curable. And brain cancer is not curable. So, there was no downside risk to using our procedure. There's some downside risk to using a curable cancer, but it picked up, and so we pivoted. I mean, we basically said, all right, we're going to focus on the breast, and we're going to let the brain go forward, and we're going to focus on the breast. So what's the process? I mean, so really keeping all these things in mind, knowing that you're going to go from need to proof of concept, which is basically setting up the company. What you need to do is keep in mind these 6 items. I need to do this, this, and this. So when I get here, do it, is the first thing is that you do feasibility. And I don't know if you guys have talked about the lean startup mechanism, but that's basically what we were using. The lean startup mechanism is go in and list all your assumptions, and in terms of taking this thing forward, and then get out of that place and go talk to people, and go talk to a lot of people. Don't talk to a few people, talk to a lot of people, and try and keep going until your assumptions quit changing. And once they quit changing, go to the next step. And if you don't do this, a lot of times what happens, and you know, we did this later on in the process, but what happens is you start developing a product that's unduly complex, because you know, engineers, and I'm an engineer, love to make things that are much more complex than they need to be, and then a lot of times you're off target. And if you get through feasibility and you raise money and you're going down here and you find out you're off target down here, you've already wasted half your money by the time you know you're off target. So, you know, what you want to do is, you know, set up your aim as well as possible so you don't get off target. And so basically on the feasibility, what we did is, you know, go through this process. All the business plan really is I got my act together. You know, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this and that. Once you do that, and then you go out and raise money. Okay, is that clear to everybody? That's probably the most important thing to say. And, oh, okay, that's, I started playing with animation, it's great. So what are the common mistakes, okay? Especially from academia, elegant solutions to non-problems. I mean, you see it all the time. Guys come in and they have just one of the greatest solutions, and I can name them, but it would probably make some people mad. But you know, we see it. I'm involved with Calder, I'm involved with some of the C4C stuff, I'm involved with the W Fund, I'm involved with the Life Science Discovery Fund and so on, and these guys come in with these elegant solutions, and you know, you go out and talk to a doc, and the doc says, you know, the 50 things that I worry about, this is number 230, you know. But the investigator really thinks that's a great thing. And really what it is, in most cases, is a technology in search of a solution, invented needs, and what they're really doing is they're trying to fund their lab instead of trying to commercialize something. And so, the next one, it's a product, not a company. A lot of people are forming companies where it really shouldn't be a company, it should be a product. It belongs with a bigger company. If you're doing something that, you know, you're gonna make a better trocar, or you're gonna make a better this or something like that, it's hard to form a company around that. What you want to try to do is see if you can't go with somebody who already is in the trocar business, get some intellectual property, and work with them as a strategic from the beginning. And that saves you a lot of time and money, because management's not as important. If the marketing is not that important, I mean, it's a different thing, and it's a lot easier route. It is easier route to work with a thing than to go out and try and work with you know, start your own company. Wasting resources on I already mentioned that. I've seen it a lot. It's that, you know, funding projects where you put $500,000 or $600,000 in it, and it's all wasted on overly complex product because they didn't need it. And so, not doing enough upfront homework, which I've already covered, it's critical. Do it, because it saves you time, money, and effort. Non-investable management, pitching the company. It's better to have no CEO than the wrong one. Everybody's going to tell you, if you're going to go start a company, go get a CEO. Well, get the right one, because you only get so many bites of the apple, which is the other thing that a lot of people do, is they try to raise money too soon. They haven't fooled the thing, and you know, my thing is it takes 10 resurrections to take care of one crucifixion. Somebody walks in and, you know, lays a bomb in front of investors, it's really hard to get credible going to the next step. So funding, how do you fund? Okay, it's a staged approach. You know, you have an idea and it doesn't have very much value. Its value of the company is low, the probability is low, and what you really need to do is take it to the next step. But you know, normally you need to do something. So you put in some sweat equity and maybe a few bucks and out of the thing, and you get to the next step, which is feasibility. And so you go through the feasibility stage, which really shouldn't cost you a lot of money. I mean, you go out, you do some market research, you talk to potential customers, you do that sort of thing, but it shouldn't cost you very much. And if it's feasible, then you say, okay, I need some real money. So you go out and you raise money at that to take you through proof of concept. So you raise money to get you through the next step. So that next step is proof of concept, and if it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, we've started a lot of stuff that had died in proof of concept because it wasn't a good idea. We were going through, it was technically too difficult or so on. Sometimes it dies there. A lot of times it dies there. Not a lot of companies get from the feasibility through proof of concept. But if it does do there, then you've got your company set up and you go out for a bigger thing of funding, so then you go out and raise more money, and what's happening is that the probability of success is increasing because you're checking off more and more boxes, and the value of the company is going up. So you're raising more money but at a higher valuation, and so on down the line. So, and value actually doesn't increase gradually. A lot of people think, well, you know, if I do 2 of the 5 or 6 things I say, it's going to be more valuable. It really doesn't work that way. It's like people are going to look at it, and if you don't have the whole thing, it's a deal killer. And so, you know, what you need to do is, so things go discreetly. So you're basically trying to pick your milestones, which add the value, but it adds it, as I say, in step function rather than a gradual function. Once you get to sales and cash flow, then it goes up basically gradually as you get more sales and so on. Your company becomes more valuable. But in this thing here, and this is important, is you've got to pick these milestones, and they're important because if you're only here on proof of concept, you can't raise the money, and they won't give you very much value for it. So fundraising and dilution, and a lot of things is that how does it work? You come in and the company is formed, and people have idea, know-how, and sweat equity. So you're putting in a lot of work. You have an idea, you file some patents, you have know-how and so on, and for that the founders basically give themselves all the stock. 100% of the stock, or the founders or the people that worked in the beginning. So they own everything, okay? But you need money, okay? So you say, well, how do I get money? Well, I get money by selling, I'm selling the part of the company. So I go out, and in the feasibility stage, after I have feasibility, I raise a little bit of money, but I give investors some stock, and I give them quite a bit of stock because the company's not very valuable here. And so here's the box. So, so if I get through feasibility and I get to proof of concept, well, then I raise some more money to get to the next step, and you can see what's happening. Your proportion is staying the same, but the investors are going up and up and up. So you're getting diluted, although the number of shares you had in the first place are the same as a percentage of the company. It's going down as a percentage. And then finally, hopefully you go public. But what happens is that is a dilution, and in stages of a company, from a medical device company, really, what are the kind of dollars you're talking about? You know, an idea to take you from an idea and a product to take you through proof of concept, it's not worth very much. I mean, you've got a good idea and so on, but you haven't got anything to back it up. It's not worth very much. People come in with ridiculous things. You know, they come in and say, you know, I've got this great idea and it's going to cure cancer. Okay, so that's fine. But it's an idea. And then you should say, well, what do you think your company's worth? Because to give them money, you have to agree on what it's worth and how much of the percentage of the company you're going to get. And they say, well, it's worth $10 million. Okay. And you say, okay, so in other words, if somebody came in and wrote you a check for $5 million for your idea, you wouldn't take it, right? Oh, yeah, we'd take it. So So it isn't worth $10 million, it's worth a lot less, and it's not worth very much. An idea is not worth very much, and I say a good idea is worth about $1 million, okay? That's all. And that's sort of how we were working. So what you do at that point in time is you go out and you raise money on the order of $200,000 to $1 million, and take 16 to 18 months to get you through proof of concept. And what you've done is you've increased the value of the company dramatically from, you know, say $1 million to $5 to $10 million. So by putting in, you know, somewhere around $500,000 on average on 6 to 18 months of a lot of work, you basically increased the value of your company by a factor of 5. And so, and this keeps going down the line, and I won't go through it, but you know, these are the kinds of numbers that come along with a, you know, a reasonably priced medical device company that that basically has, you know, venture. This is what venture guys would be looking at, and so at the end, you've taken the company's value from $1 million up to about $100 million, a 100-fold increase, but you have to go through all these steps, and that's the money and the time and effort that it takes to do it. So if you look at it on a graph, what happens is that the founders, which is the white line, owns everything, okay? But it's worth nothing, okay? And as you go down on the first round, which is proof of concept, they probably get cut in half, but the company starts getting some value, and then they get cut in half again, but the company's more value and the founder's equity. So what's happened is that the value of the company's gone up dramatically. The founders hasn't gone up as dramatically, but you know, they own 18% of something that's very valuable, where here they owned 100% of nothing. Okay, so that's and a lot of people don't realize that, you know, you're creating a lot of value as you go down the pike. So what are the sources of funding? The first ones are non-dilutive, and for you guys, this is the most important, because you can get a lot of money, or been able to get a lot of money, or enough money to get you through that proof of concept stage, because the proof of concept stage, as I said before, increases your value dramatically. If you can fill those 6 boxes, or have a high probability of filling those 6 boxes on non-dilutive money, you've taken your value up by a huge amount. So what you want to try and do, there are government grants, LSDF gives things, foundations like Calder gives money, and other grants, but what people have to remember is on a lot of these grants here is it's not good science, it's commercialization. And I'm a WBBA and do a lot of coaching, and you know, the people that are trying to get these grants are going in there and they're coming in with the science and so on, and it's great science, but it doesn't look like it's a commercializable product. So you have to keep that in mind. Then the next one is early stage financing, and a big part of it is sweat equity, which is that you're trading stock for services. You raise money from self, family, and friends. They're angels, and angel investors are important. They generally are people that are knowledgeable in the field that you do. They have some money. They will put money into your enterprise, but getting stock in return. So there's sort of pre-venture funds, and then seed funds are available. The next step, and these funds will get you through this proof of concept stage. I mean, that's sort of what it was designed for. The next stage is where you're getting the bigger bucks, and that's from existing companies, strategic investors, and venture capital. And then the last part of funding is liquidity, where you take the company public and get money from the public offering, or you sell the company and you don't care anymore, because hopefully you know, they cash you out, okay, if you're an investor. So ventures, and you know, they can add a lot of value to the company. Good ones. You always hear the horror stories about the bad ones, but there are a lot of good venture people out there. They give you connections and networking. They have know-how and advice, and that's really important. They add a lot of credibility to the deal. If you've got the right investors who are good investors and known to be good investors, other people want to invest aside them. Their job is to maximize return for themselves and their funds. They're not trying to build companies, they're trying to make money. So that's important, and a lot of people get sideways because they're looking at it as, you know, why are these guys doing this? It's because they want to maximize their return. They want to structure as strong a company as possible because of that, even at the expense of the founders. And this is something that happens a lot, is the founders that start a company aren't the right guys to run it. And so they get pushed aside, you know, longer term in the later stages. And then they'll try and get control of the company and invariably do somewhere down the process. So what are they looking for? They're looking for a good return on investment, which is a liquidity event, and high returns, which means you get to liquidity quickly and you don't pay a lot of money up front for the stock. So you've always got this negotiation going. And then a lot of people go out and go to the size of the funds and try to raise money where the fund is not appropriate for the amount of money they're trying to raise. So if you go to a venture firm and you're trying to raise $500,000, they don't even want to talk to you. Not because it's a good idea, it's because they want to put $10 or $20 million to work in a project because they got a $200 million fund and they don't want to work on more than 20 companies. On the other hand, it's you go to a smaller fund that only funds $500,000 and you're trying to raise $2 million, you got to keep in mind that you got another $1.5 million to go. So those guys won't do it. So you've got to keep in mind, you know, who you're going to. What are the potential deal killers? People, they bet people as much as ideas. That's really important. If you got the wrong people pitching it and running it, it's a non-starter. Evolutionary versus revolutionary, and I was talking to it is, you know, is this a product versus a company? And then a lot of people come in and say, you know, I'm going to make a better this or a better that. Better is evolutionary. Revolutionary is something that really changes things and it's going to make things a lot different. We keep doing that. Product versus a company, same thing. Market potential's too low. No poor patent position. I sort of covered these before, but it's really, these are the reasons why they're not going to invest, and that's why I had the 6 yellow boxes, okay? So what have I learned through all this stuff, okay? The first thing is I'm most excited about the things I know the least about. So, you know, somebody comes in with this thing and say, oh God, that's a great idea, and I go out and start talking to guys and customers come in and say, you know, that's a terrible idea. Well, but I was really excited about it. And then as you do more and more homework, you find out, well, you know, there's some problems here. It's not quite as easy as people think it is. So, so do your homework. That's really important. You don't know what you don't know, and that is really true. You know, especially when you're getting into something like if you're a researcher or somebody getting into the medical products field, there are a lot of traps that you can get into, and there are a lot of things that you have to do. And what you don't want to do is waste money on silly things, but you don't want to work serially when you can be working in parallel. So what you wanted to try to do is to go find some experienced help to help you to go in and take a look at what you're doing and make sure that they're guiding you in the right way. Because a lot of times guys will spend a lot of time and energy getting into the end of it and find out that there's a fatal flaw in their whole idea, and they spent all this time, energy, and money, and the flaw could have been seen up front. The last person you want to fool is yourself, which is obvious. You put a lot of time and energy into these things if you are really the entrepreneur. Now, a lot of guys, you know, come in and pawn it off onto somebody else to take it forward, so they, you know, think it's good to you know, hype the company and so on. But somebody in the end has to take it forward, and that person doesn't want to fool themselves because they can spend a lot of time and energy taking something forward that is half-cocked and isn't going to do it, and they lose credibility, and not only that, they've wasted a lot of time and money. And then only invest in things that create value. Don't buy the BMW on your Calder funds, okay? Don't be too valuation sensitive. A lot of people, again, try to put too high a value on their idea. And as I say, 100% of nothing is not as valuable as 25% of something, and get good investors. So you want to get people that are going to help you take it forward. Always raise money when you need it. If you need money and you're going out and trying to get it, it puts you in a really bad position that, and I mean need, not want. I mean, a lot of people are raising money when they want it, but they don't need it. But a lot of people start companies and then they have a burn rate and they have employees and all that kind of stuff, and they're running themselves out of money, so they really need it. And so they're in a bad negotiation position, so you want to do it early. And then raise enough money. A lot of people under-raise, and it always takes longer and costs more. And I think the last thing is the largest predictor of success for your expectations. I mean, you know, you just don't want to fail. What you do is you think you can do it. You know, you got all these people telling you it's going to be too hard, but you know, a lot of times if you just keep your nose to the grindstone, you can make it happen. So that's it, and I'd be happy to take any questions or